Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour. At least 18 die as a plane crashes during takeoff at Kathmandu Airport in Nepal. Aircraft slips off the runway while leaving for Pokhara. The death toll from landslides in Ethiopia rises to 229. 5 people pulled alive. Rescue and relief operations continue. Typhoon Gaemi strengthens as it nears Taiwan. Flights cancelled, military on standby amid forecasts of torrential rain. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy begins two-day visit to India to hold talks with Indian ministers on a bilateral free trade agreement and global security. And ASEAN foreign ministers meetings kick off in Laos. Foreign ministers of India and China to attend ASEAN East Asia Summit and ASEAN Regional Forum talks. At least 18 people were killed after a Saurya Airlines plane crashed at the Tribhuvan International Airport in Nepal's capital Kathmandu on Wednesday. The crash occurred after the Pokhara-bound flight suffered a runway excursion during takeoff. The plane was carrying crew members and technicians to Pokhara for maintenance checks. Preparations are underway to take all the bodies to the Tribhuvan University Teaching Hospital. Domestic flights have been affected as the airport had been temporarily shut down. And Shweta Singh joins us from Kathmandu with the latest. Shweta, what more can you tell us about the plane crash?
Ramesh, you see this crash was really very severe because if you see at that, it was the point at the top that fire was caught on air. Many onlookers informed me that when the just flight took over and right wing of the plane touched the ground and immediately caught fire on a moving 300 above the air, 300 meters above the air, it fell down. And only one passenger, that is not passenger, actually only one pilot could be saved. One passenger was rescued, but he couldn't survive. And now the total toll is 18 dead people. All the dead bodies have been sent to teaching hospital from where the teams of the family are receiving the dead bodies. So this was one of the severe accidents, I would say.
Indeed, one of the worst air accidents in Nepal or anywhere in the world for that matter, Shweta. But that said, any reports of an Indian or foreign nationals among the dead also? Why do you think these plane crashes occur at an alarming regularity in Nepal, and what can be done to prevent them?
Ramesh, you see in the total 8 passengers whose dead bodies found. It's like 17 are natives and 1 is a foreigner. In that 17 are male and 1 is female. So only 1 foreigner was there on the flight. And you see the cause of having such flight crashes frequently in Nepal is because the aeroplane are quite small and they cannot tolerate the turbulence. And technical support, I would say, I don't know how strong I would suggest it is because there are frequent crashes happening in Nepal. And because of the small size and poor engineering technical support, these frequently happen here.
Right, so as Shweta Singh is reporting from Kathmandu, at least 18 people are feared dead in that fatal air crash at Kathmandu Airport in Nepal. Shweta, thank you. Appreciate it. Moving on, British Foreign Secretary David Lammy is in India on a two-day visit. It's the first high-level visit by a British minister to India after the installation of a Labour government there. The British High Commission in New Delhi says the visit will push for a reset of the UK-India partnership by reinforcing the UK's commitment to securing a bilateral free trade agreement. Lammy is expected to meet India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. He will head for the ASEAN foreign ministers' meetings in Laos's capital, Vientiane. Jaishankar will also be travelling to Laos. And joining me for more on this ongoing visit is my colleague Akshay Dongre. Akshay, tell us more about the British Foreign Secretary's engagements in New Delhi. What will he be talking with the Indian ministers?
Well, the visit by David Lammy showcases, in fact, the priorities that the UK government has. In fact, the newly elected Labour Party government in the United Kingdom that has, when it comes to the foreign relations and the the priorities order that the UK government has right now is keeping India at one of the top positions. Given the fact that in the previous government as well, in the Conservative government, we saw that both the countries have in fact reached new heights as far as mutual cooperation is concerned. Bilateral engagements have gone up several notches, and in fact the free trade agreement that has been discussed for the past 2 years, that started in 2022, is yet to be finalized and yet to be put in an operational mode. So that is going to be the priority as of now from the statement that has been issued by the UK government, the Foreign Office of UK government, in fact the office of David Lammy as well. It says that this is not going to be the ceiling but the floor of the Indo-UK relations when it comes to the potential that the two countries have as far as mutual security, mutual growth and development is concerned. So as far as the aspect of infrastructure is concerned, economic growth, mutual cooperation, bilateral understanding of each other's concerns and the prospects of opportunities, all of this is going to be discussed as far as the meeting between Indian Foreign Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy are concerned. There will be a meeting, and in fact all aspects of bilateral engagement will be discussed. So, the point that has to be highlighted, Abhishek, is also the fact that David Lammy and the Conservative government and the Labour government rather have taken over just this week. In fact, David Lammy has been appointed the Foreign Secretary for the UK just this month, and India is the one of the first countries that he is visiting just within a month of his appointment as the Foreign Secretary. That in fact goes on to highlight that the prospect and the priority order for the UK is keeping India at one of the top positions, given the fact that both of these countries have a lot to achieve as far as bilateral engagement is concerned, and the growth opportunities are immense, and that is what both the governments realize. And the free trade agreement, among the trade agreements that have been going on between the two countries, are going to be on the top as far as the priorities and the agenda is concerned, Abhishek.
All right, we leave it at that. Akshay, thank you, and we'll keep you posted, viewers, on the talks as and when they happen. In other news, the death toll from landslides in Ethiopia rises to 229. It could rise further as search for survivors continues. A landslide buried people at Gofa in southern Ethiopia following heavy rain on Sunday. Then a second landslide occurred which buried people who had come to help those people. Footage shared by the local administration showed people digging up bodies with shovels and bare hands. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali condoled the loss of lives. The Ethiopian government officials had been deployed to reduce the impact of the disaster. And Leon Sinyangi joins us from Kampala, the capital of Uganda, for the latest. Leon, how are the rescue and relief operations coming along?
Well, what we've been able to gather, at least from within the region, is that there is collaborative effort both from the community and, like you've mentioned earlier, the communities that are the first responders to that particular occurrence, using shovels and their bare hands to try and search for any survivors and possibly recover anything that they can. But then also the government and other bodies are putting in just as much effort in the rescue and also the relief services, given the disaster that occurred just a few days ago. And indeed, these are already challenges that could possibly present in this effort. There could be the need for earth-moving machinery, and now within the Gofa region, that is approximately 320 kilometers from the capital, Addis Ababa, the period within which these efforts and all this machinery and all that is needed to try and push for this for the rescue and the efforts therein may take a bit of some time. However, there's just as much collaborative effort, and whatever could be rescued from the rubble is all that is as much hope coming through from those that are involved currently.
Leon, what do we know about the affected area, the area in question? I ask you this because reports suggest that almost every rainy season, people die because of landslides and heavy rains in that particular region. Also, humanitarian agencies are scrambling to send desperately needed aid to this rural and mountainous area, we are told.
Well, it's definitely important to understand the seasons in Ethiopia. Now, June to September provides itself as the main rain season for the country. And then also the heavier seasons are through April to May. And definitely the occurrence of this landslide is within the rainy period. And Gofa itself in the southern part of Ethiopia is a relatively mountainous area. That, of course, with soft lands therein and with heavy rains pounding in such areas, they're susceptible to any possible landslides, thus, of course, causing a great effect and a hazard to the people that live in those particular areas. So, yes, the occurrences of landslides, especially within the rainy seasons, are quite common within Ethiopia and those specific regions. Now, that, of course, presents a big challenge to the arrival of relief services and relief efforts, given the situation. It's a remote area, Gofa, that is, and of course, with the heavy rains that pound means road access is limited. Accessing the points and the zones that have been greatly affected is just as much limited. And like I had earlier stated, there's a need for earth-moving equipment. Indeed. Now, the capacity for all of this to arrive within the next few hours, possibly days, still remains a bit of a huge prospect. But even still, the efforts are going on, and hopefully there could be some lives rescued.
All right, Leon Senyange in Kampala. Thank you. Appreciate it. New Zealand's Prime Minister Christopher Luxon on Wednesday promised reforms after a public inquiry found some 200,000 people were abused in state and religious care over the last 70 years. Survivors and their supporters were present at the public gallery of the Parliament during the report's debate on Wednesday. Prime Minister Luxon is expected to make a formal apology on the 12th of November. The report found that nearly 1 in 3 children, young people and vulnerable adults in care from 1950 to 2019 experienced some form of abuse. The finding could leave the government facing billions of dollars in fresh compensation claims.
A terrible injustice was done in the name of state care, and it is now the responsibility of the state to make redress, and this government will ensure that it happens. And as Prime Minister, I will ensure that the state carries its care and protection responsibilities with tremendous weight.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar to travel to Laos and Japan for ASEAN and Quad meetings. Bangladesh restores internet services. Army chief inspects damage caused by protesters in Dhaka. And protesters gather near the venue of Israel Prime Minister's address to U.S. lawmakers.
We simply throw things away when we're done using them, be it a cup, an old shirt, or a used battery. But we can do a lot better Let's find out how.
I thought I can get a bunch of people together and we can just create this beautiful product while not being wasteful, while paying people correctly, while not throwing things into the garbage can.
Our goal is to recover 95% of our nickel, which is the most expensive, most valuable ore, including aluminum and copper, of course.
We are successfully managing waste in this small town with a limited number of people, resources, and market. If we can do that here, it would definitely be possible in larger towns that have many advantages over us.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. And now to news from the Indo-Pacific. ASEAN foreign ministers' meetings kicked off in Laos on Wednesday. 10 Southeast Asian delegates and foreign ministers are participating in ASEAN's community-building efforts and reaffirming ASEAN's centrality and unity amidst current geopolitical developments. Alongside India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi will be in attendance at the meetings starting on the 25th of July. Heavy police and armed security presence was seen ahead of the arrivals of foreign ministers and senior officials for the meetings. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will make back-to-back visits to Laos and Japan to attend meetings related to the ASEAN and Quad. The minister will travel to Vientiane, capital of Laos, from 25th to 27th of July to participate in foreign ministers' meetings under the ASEAN framework. It includes the ASEAN-India, East Asia Summit and ASEAN Regional Forum meetings. 2024 marks a decade of India's Act East policy, which was announced at the 9th East Asia Summit held in 2014. Minister Jaishankar will travel to Japan from 28th to the 30th of July to participate in a meeting of the Quad foreign ministers in Tokyo on the 29th, along with his counterparts from Australia, Japan and the US. Bangladesh was crawling back to normalcy with limited internet and office hours on Wednesday after more than a week of chaos over student protests involving government job quotas. Nearly 200 deaths were reported in just over a week of violence. Most of the country remained without internet, but thousands of cars were on the streets of the capital Dhaka after authorities relaxed a curfew for 7 hours. Offices and banks opened for a few hours on Wednesday, while authorities restored broadband internet in some areas in Dhaka and the second largest city of Chattogram. Palestinians living in Khan Yunis in southern Gaza fled their homes as Israeli tanks advanced deep into the area. Israel said its action was intended to prevent Hamas fighters from regrouping. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is in the US, told families of hostages held in Gaza that a deal that would secure their release could be near. Months of efforts mediated by Egypt and Qatar to reach a ceasefire gained momentum in recent weeks under a proposal outlined by US President Joe Biden in the month of May. Meanwhile, an Israeli negotiation team is due on Thursday to resume talks that would include hostages being released in return for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. Israel informed Egypt that an Israeli delegation would arrive in Cairo on Wednesday evening local time. And joining me from Tel Aviv is my colleague Sarah Coates. Sarah, what can you tell us about the efforts to resolve the Israel-Hamas conflict?
Good afternoon. Well, you did mention this senior Israeli delegation heading to Cairo a little later today amid reports that one of the things that this delegation will really be discussing with these key mediators is the presence of Israeli troops on the so-called Philadelphia corridor, that is near that border between Israel and Egypt. This has been a major sticking point in these negotiations up until now, and we are hearing that this is something that will be discussed. Now it comes as the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said over the past couple of days that conditions for the release of these remaining hostages being kept in Gaza are ripening, but there is a lot of concern here on the ground and also among this delegation that's actually travelled with him to Washington. A number of hostages that have recently been released, also family members urging Netanyahu not to make that congressional address later today before a deal to see these hostages released is inked. Now, we've also heard from the US President Joe Biden. He issued a message late Tuesday night coming out to say that he will use his remaining 6 months in office to end this war, saying we're on the verge of getting there. So certainly a lot of pressure coming from the international community and a lot of pressure here at home to see a ceasefire and see a hostage release deal. But certainly there is not a lot of optimism.
Sarah, as you say, while Netanyahu is visiting the US, is Israel continuing military operations in Gaza?
Certainly, we have heard from the IDF saying it's hit some 50 targets over the past 24 hours. These include reported weapons storage facilities and other Hamas infrastructure. Now, people on the ground in Khan Yunis say that they've been sustaining a relentless bombing campaign, while we've also heard from doctors at the largest hospital in the south, the Nasser hospital, basically saying that people are dying on the hospital floor simply because they don't have the means to treat the amount of people who've been wounded in this latest assault on that southern area. Now, this came after Israel issued this fresh evacuation order for people in the east of Khan Yunis on Monday, saying move to the Al-Mawasi area, although people on the ground say there is simply no safe place left to go. They say that this area is already very, very overcrowded. So it's certainly, according to reports, a very dire situation on the ground, and one that many international players are really hoping will be resolved very soon.
Sarah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Sarah Coates there reporting from Tel Aviv. In related news, thousands of protesters gather near the U.S. legislature in Washington, D.C., where Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will address lawmakers. Netanyahu's itinerary includes a meeting with President Joe Biden and Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. He is facing criticism both at home and abroad for his approach to the Gaza conflict amid a mounting civilian death toll. Jagrati Dave has more.
As security is tightened ahead of Mr. Netanyahu's speech on Wednesday, pro-Palestinian activists are angry about Washington's support for Tel Aviv and its assault on Gaza, which has killed nearly 40,000 civilians in the enclave, according to its Hamas-run health ministry. The Israeli operation was launched after Hamas's October the 7th attack, where around 1,200 people were killed, according to Israel's government. The war has sparked protests across college campuses here in the US, and this week demonstrators will be in Washington with demands for a ceasefire and for the US to stop giving aid to Israel. Relatives of hostages taken by Hamas are also gathering on the National Mall to highlight their plight and call for their release. Mr. Netanyahu's speech to Congress also comes at a tricky time for US-Israeli relations. Mr. Netanyahu has hit back against US President Joe Biden, who's been increasingly critical of Israel's strategy in Gaza and has been putting pressure on his ally to prevent the conflict spilling over into the wider region. It also comes at a challenging time for Washington, with Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race and endorsing his vice president instead. Kamala Harris has said she won't preside over the Senate for the Israeli leader's speech, with an aide citing a scheduling conflict, but others have interpreted this as an indication of just how divisive Mr. Netanyahu's visit is for the Democrats, some of whom have indicated they may boycott the speech. Jagrati Dave in Washington, reporting for DD India.
All right, now take a look at what else is making news around the world. A hydrated mineral that contains up to 6 molecules of crystalline water has been identified in a lunar sample retrieved by Chinese scientists. The finding has unveiled a potential form of hydrated salts in which water molecules may exist on the moon's surface. Raging wildfires forced nearly 25,000 people to evacuate the town of Jasper and its surroundings in Canada's Rocky Mountains as wildfires spread across the western provinces of Alberta and British Columbia. Officials warn of more deteriorating situation as a large number of wildfires are still out of control. In one of the second largest anti-drug operations, Mexico's Navy seized and destroyed a drug lab in the northern city of El Dorado. Authorities found a substance believed to be methamphetamine, precursors and chemicals used in drug production, which were all subsequently destroyed. Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet service has been activated in a hospital in Gaza with the help of the UAE and Israel. Now, this more than 5 months after the Israel approved Starlink's use in the hospital in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. The high-speed internet will enable potentially life-saving medical consultations via real-time video calling. And still to come on DD India News Hour. US President Joe Biden to deliver a televised address will likely speak on his decision to drop out of the presidential race. And Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba holds talks with his Chinese counterpart in the city of Guangzhou.
This week on Defense Dynamics, we dive into the turbulent waters of Indian Ocean, where shifting alliances and growing rivalries are redefining the security landscape. Discover how India's announcement to upgrade its military bases on Lakshadweep Island is poised to counter the nexus between China, Pakistan and now the Maldives. And also how the simmering instability in India's neighborhood, that is Pakistan and Bangladesh, could have a wider impact on the security dynamics of the whole region. Do tune in for strategic insights that will guide India's geopolitics in days ahead on a special episode on DD India, Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. IST.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. At least 18 die as a plane crashes during takeoff at Kathmandu Airport in Nepal. Aircraft slips off the runway while leaving for Pokhara. Death toll from landslides in Ethiopia rises to 229. 5 people pulled alive. Rescue and relief operations continue. Typhoon Gaemi strengthens as it nears Taiwan. Flights cancelled. Military on standby amid forecasts of heavy rains. And ASEAN foreign ministers' meetings kick off in Laos. Foreign ministers of India and China to attend ASEAN East Asia Summit and ASEAN Regional Forum talks. 25th July marks the 880th day of the Ukraine-Russia conflict. It was reported that Ukraine's forces damaged a ferry in occupied Crimea that was allegedly being used by Russia's forces to transport military equipment. The attack comes days after Russia's last railway ferry, the Slavyanin, in Port Kavkaz, was destroyed as Ukraine launched a major aerial attack on Russian forces. Ukraine's military has been targeting Crimea with multiple drone attacks. In the latest, Ukraine has downed as many as 25 Russian drones just a while back. And retaliating to recent strikes by Ukraine's forces, a Russian drone attacked a port infrastructure and commercial and residential buildings early on Wednesday, injuring 3 in the southern Ukrainian city of Izmail on the river Danube. The attack damaged several buildings in the port, caused a fire and also damaged 3 trucks, as per Ole Kuiper, governor of the Odessa region. A 5-story residential building was damaged during the attacks that smashed its windows and stairwells and ruined a part of its facade. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba is in China till Thursday. On Tuesday, he met with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi and discussed about ways to achieve a quote-unquote fair peace in the war with Russia. Kuleba's visit is the first by a high-ranking Ukrainian official since Russia's full-scale February 2022 invasion. China, the world's second-largest economy, has not publicly condemned Russia for it. Meanwhile, according to a poll, nearly a third of Ukrainians would accept some territorial concessions to Russia for a quick end to the war. But most still oppose giving up any land. The Kiev International Institute of Sociology said its poll on about 1,000 people on Ukrainian-held territory in May found that 32% would agree to some form of territorial concession. But it was found that 55% of Ukrainians remain opposed to making any territorial concessions. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin reaffirmed Washington, D.C.'s unwavering support for Ukraine in a call with Ukraine's Defense Minister Rustem Umerov. It was the first call between the two defense ministers since U.S. President Joe Biden's announcement that he was ending his re-election bid and endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris for the Democratic Party's nomination to take on Donald Trump. Washington, D.C. under Biden has been Ukraine's biggest supporter in the war that Russia has been waging against its smaller neighbor. The U.S. has provided more than $50 billion in military aid since 2022. Right, moving on and shifting focus, some other news we are tracking here on DD India News Up. As it edges towards Taiwan, Typhoon Gaemi has begun covering the eastern parts of the country since Wednesday morning local time. Typhoon Gaemi is expected to be the strongest storm to hit Taiwan in 8 years. It's set to make landfall on the northeastern coast on Wednesday evening. Flights have been delayed, markets are shut, and at least one person was reported dead. Taiwan's military remains on standby amid torrential rains. Ahead of the landfall, more than 2,000 people have been evacuated from sparsely populated mountainous areas amid a high risk of landslides. The weather authorities have upgraded its status to a strong typhoon, packing gusts of up to 227 kilometers per hour near its center. After the typhoon makes its expected landfall on Wednesday, it's likely to hit the southeastern Chinese province of Fujian late on Thursday afternoon local time. And Laura Westbrook joins us from Hong Kong for more. Laura, where is the typhoon headed as we speak, and when will it make landfall in Taiwan?
Yes, here in Hong Kong, we are experiencing the effects of Typhoon Gaemi. Temperatures here have reached 35 degrees Celsius today, and that's because of the subsiding air. That's air on the outer edges of the typhoon that has raised the temperature, suppressed the formation of clouds. And here in Hong Kong, we're getting very hot temperatures, and forecasters are considering raising the typhoon warning to #1. But over in Taiwan, it's a very different picture. People there are already experiencing heavy rain. Winds are picking up. Gaemi currently has wind gusts reaching a maximum of 230 kilometers an hour. That's the equivalent to a Category 4 hurricane in terms of wind strength. it's expected to make landfall in the northeast of Taiwan in a matter of hours, and it's expecting to pass through the northern part of the island, including the capital city, Taipei. But it's not just strong winds that the nation that is going to be experiencing. They're also expecting very heavy rain, which is what authorities have said poses another threat. According to forecasters, they say rain could reach over a meter in 24 hours, and that brings with it the threat of landslides. So Taiwan really bracing themselves for this typhoon, which is about to hit in a matter of hours.
Indeed. And what is the situation like in Taiwan as we speak, Laura? What precautions is Taiwan, or for that matter, Fujian in China taking to minimize the impact of this typhoon?
Well, Taiwan does experience a fair number of typhoons, so it is well versed in making preparations, and it has already begun to make those preparations. People have been given the day off work, schools have also been suspended, the financial markets are closed, most domestic flights have been cancelled, as well as 200 international flights. So people are being told to stay at home, and there are around 29,000 soldiers who are on standby. They've also evacuated some 4,000 people from remote mountainous areas. That's because of, as I mentioned, the heavy rain, which gives with it the potential for landslides. And as this typhoon moves through Taiwan, here in Hong Kong, we're going to be experiencing strong winds on Thursday and Friday, and when it moves across the Taiwan Strait, it is expected to hit the southern Chinese province of Fujian, and that province has been experiencing a lot of heavy rain and deadly landslides, so they will also be feeling the impact of Gaemi in the days ahead.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Laura Westbrook in Hong Kong, thank you. Much appreciated. Meanwhile, Taiwan conducted an anti-landing live fire drill on the outlying island of Penghu on Wednesday, the third day of its annual war game that has been partially impacted by Typhoon Gaemi. This year's Han Kwang military exercise aims to be as close as possible to actual combat with no script and simulating how to repel a Chinese attack. On the coast of Penghu Island, tanks rolled down the dirt road while firing shots at flare targets on the ocean, with other soldiers took positions on mobile missiles and by the coast. Live fire drills will only take place on Taiwan's outlying islands, including Kinmen, Matsu and Penghu, which sit nestled next to the Chinese coast and were the scene of on-off clashes during the height of the Cold War. Elsewhere, Typhoon Gaemi brought heavy downpours and strong winds as it approached Japan's Ishigaki Island on Wednesday. The typhoon is expected to bring about 250 millimeters of rain to Okinawa through late Wednesday night as it moves towards the Taiwan Strait. Japan's meteorological agency urged residents to stay indoors and be on high alert for landslides and floods. And residents in a village in Manila were forced out of their flooded homes on Wednesday after Typhoon Gaemi and a southwest monsoon brought heavy rains to the Filipino capital region and northern provinces. Offices and schools were suspended in the capital region because of the tropical storm. And 3 people were killed and 5 reported missing in Vietnam because of floods and landslides triggered by Typhoon Gaemi. Rescuers waded through chest-deep water to bring residents to safety on Wednesday as floods and landslides triggered by heavy rains hit Vietnam's northern provinces. The flooding submerged buildings and roads, cutting them off after the waters flowed down from mountaintops in rural areas. Right, moving on, U.S. President Joe Biden will deliver a televised address to nation on Wednesday evening local time on his decision to drop out of the presidential race. Biden said on X that he would speak on what lies ahead and how he will finish the job for the American people. Biden is returning to the White House after isolating at his home in the state of Delaware after being diagnosed last week with COVID-19. Biden has not been seen publicly since 17th of July. Biden's White House physician said that the U.S. president had tested negative for COVID-19 and that his symptoms had since disappeared. A U.S. survey shows that Kamala Harris is more popular than Donald Trump. The online survey by Ipsos and Reuters, published on Tuesday, shows Harris leads Trump by 2 points nationally, by 44% of the vote to 42%. According to the first national poll carried out since Joe Biden stood down, Harris has a fighting chance of overturning Trump's lead in the swing states ahead of the 5th November election. A previous poll by the same firm previously found that Trump led Joe Biden by 2 points. Kamala Harris has reiterated that she is ready to take on Trump in the U.S. presidential election. The likely Democratic Party nominee made her campaign debut in the state of Wisconsin after securing the backing of key Democrats and a record fundraising. Nick Harper reports from Washington, D.C.
It has been an incredible period for Kamala Harris as she ascends to this position of presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party. A real whirlwind 48 hours since Joe Biden announced that he was not seeking re-election. Since then, there's been a number of firsts. On Monday, for the first time, she spoke at the White House as she seeks the presidency. She praised Joe Biden. She spoke about his legacy. And then on Monday night, for the first time, she spoke to campaign staff in Delaware. And on Tuesday, she held her first campaign rally with potential voters. That took place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the very same place where the Republicans held their 4-day convention last week, showing, I think, how pivotal Wisconsin as a state will be in this upcoming election.
Before I was elected vice president, before I was elected United States Senator, I was elected Attorney General of the state of California, and I was a courtroom prosecutor before then. And in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
And now Kamala Harris has won the majority of delegates. They have said that they will support her. It means that she is now the presumptive nominee. It's not official yet. That's likely to take place in the first week of August, when the Democratic Party holds a virtual roll call to officially crown her as the nominee to go up against Donald Trump. Kamala Harris has put out a statement in which she says, "I am proud to have secured the broad support needed to become our party's nominee. I look forward to formally accepting the nomination soon." We've also seen a period of record fundraising. She raised $81 million in a 24-hour period, the most of any presidential candidate in US history. That money has only increased since then, now topping more than $100 million.
And because we are a people-powered campaign, that is how you know we will be a people-first presidency. And Wisconsin, this campaign is also about two different visions for our nation. One, where we are focused on the future. The other, focused on the past. We believe in a future where every person has the opportunity not just to get by, but to get ahead.
So she has managed to unify the party. There's incredible enthusiasm for her. Now she needs to convince undecided voters, in particular in swing states like Wisconsin, that her vision of the future is better than that of Donald Trump's. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump's campaign filed a complaint with the Federal Election Commission on Tuesday. Trump argued that Kamala Harris could not legally take over funds raised by Joe Biden's re-election campaign. The fight over the accounts had roughly $95 million in the bank at the end of June. The Trump campaign argued that Harris undertook a brazen money grab. In the filing, David Warrington, the campaign's general counsel, said Harris was in the process of committing what he described as the largest campaign finance violation in American history. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India simplifies rules and regulations for foreign direct investment and overseas investments. And an exclusive report from Paris on how the city is gearing up to host Paris Olympics.
This is the coastal city of Puri, home to Lord Jagannath.
Lord Jagannath is the Supreme Lord. As his name clearly denotes, Jagatanatha, Lord of the universe.
It is a treasury of more than 1500 years.
This is the story of Jagannath Temple and its Ratan Bhandar.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A day after India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the country's budget, Parliament opened on a heated note on Wednesday. Vice President and Chairperson of the Upper House, that is the Rajya Sabha, Jagdeep Dhankar, raised concerns about the frequent suspension of regular business notices, noting that in the last 36 years, such motions have been taken up on only 6 occasions. He rejected all recent notices for suspension.
I will call upon leaders of the parties to soul search and my reflections about Rule 267, that in more than 3 decades it has been availed only for half a dozen occasions. And every day of the sitting, I get number of such requests. It is being taken as a routine exercise, as a habit. It has reduced itself to a farcical exercise. In spite of my serious observations yesterday, since no focus has taken place, I have again uploaded the same on your portal.
In the Rajya Sabha, opposition lawmakers walked out claiming that Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's speech failed to mention the non-BJP ruled states. In a heated exchange, the minister defended the allocations.
In every budget, you don't get an opportunity to name every state of this country. I'll take this example. Between vote on account, which was presented on 1st February this year, and now the full budget, which was presented yesterday for this year, I have not named very many states. But let me take the example of Maharashtra, for instance. Between vote on account and yesterday's budget, in vote on account and in yesterday's budget, I had not named Maharashtra. I'll take it as an example.
India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has reacted to the Indian budget, which was presented on Tuesday. Minister Jaishankar highlighted that the budget seeks to maintain growth, manage inflation to ensure that India's national capabilities further grow.
The budget which Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharamanji presented yesterday is a very exceptionally important budget because, one, it is the first budget of the 3rd term of the NDA government. Secondly, the budget is presented at a time when the global situation is very volatile, uncertain, very difficult in many ways. So what the budget seeks to do is to maintain growth reduce inflation, to ensure at the same time that our national capabilities grow, and that India's rise, India's growth, the prosperity, progress of India, the development of India is not affected by a negative international environment. So this is a kind of global perspective, really global context in a way of how the budget should be seen.
India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the finance bill on Tuesday. Some sectors of the economy rejoiced at her new announcements, one of it being e-commerce. It's proposed that equalization levy at the rate of 2% of consideration received for e-commerce supply of goods or services will no longer be applicable on or after 1st of August 2024. Equalization levy is a direct tax levied on online transactions for e-commerce operators. Another decision pertained to foreign direct investment and overseas investments. In the finance bill, it was announced that rules and regulations for foreign direct investment and overseas investments will be simplified to facilitate foreign direct investments, nudge prioritization, and promote opportunities for using the Indian rupee as a currency for overseas investments. And now take a look at what else is making news in India. India's top court has ordered the status quo be maintained at the Shambhu border near Ambala, where farmers have been protesting since the 13th of February. And now to all the news from the world of sport. Now, the Paris 2024 Olympics will mark a historic change. For the first time in history, the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games will not take place inside a stadium. This time, it will take place along the Seine River. DD India correspondent Narayan Singh brings you this exclusive report from Paris.
Paris 2024 will break new ground by bringing sporting competition into heart of the city, and same will be true for the opening ceremony, which will take place in the heart of the Paris along the Seine River, which is just behind me. You can watch here, and Eiffel Tower is also there. The parade of athletes, which traditionally takes place within a stadium, will be held on the Seine with the boats for each national delegation equipped with cameras to allow viewers watching on TV and online to get a close-up view of all the action. Winding their way from east to west, 10,500 athletes will cross the center of Paris, the main home of the game, where they will showcase their sporting prowess over the following 16 days. Throughout the opening ceremony, athletes will appear on stage alongside performers in line, with Paris 2024's goal of hosting a games that is created for and by the athletes. The parade will end its 6-kilometer route in front of Trocadero, where the final element of the ceremony and the celebratory show will take place.
In women's cricket, at the ongoing T20 Asia Cup, Indian women beat Nepal to continue their winning streak at the international cricketing event. Deepti Sharma starred with 3 wickets as India beat Nepal by 82 runs to qualify for the semi-final stage. Arundhati Reddy and Radha Yadav also chipped in with 2 wickets each. Indian openers Shefali Verma 81 and Dayalan Hemalata 47 stitched together 122 runs for the first wicket as India posted 173 for 3 against Nepal. The women in blue will be playing against the runner-up of Group B. Earlier, India's stand-in captain Smriti Mandhana won the toss and elected to bat first against Nepal in their final Group A game at the 2024 Women's Asia Cup on Tuesday. The Olympic torch inches closer to central Paris as the relay passed by the Palace of Versailles. A host of people have the torch on the final stages of its journey, including French men's football coach Didier Deschamps. Fans line the grounds to get a glimpse of the torch at a famous landmark.
Les futurs internationaux.
Ah, les jeunes, ils mettent plus d'ambiance. C'est vrai.
Bravo Didier.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hub. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen now to download it. And let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.